You want to fight crime? Let's get dangerous.
And there we go. Now you guys can hear me. So hello. It is another Saturday, and it's that time once again on at around 9 o'clock to come on here and talk about some comics and things here. So let's go ahead and get started with another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. You guys already know who I am. I am Joe D. McPhee here, and we got somewhat of a decent show here. I actually got a topic that we're going to revisit here because I had an epiphany. And we're going to talk about what I thought about and everything. And we're going to talk about it a little bit here. Hopefully, those who are watching will join in the chat. Your opinions is just as good as mine. And we're going to talk about the topic. We're going to talk about a lot of things that I'm seeing here dealing with said topic. And I know the thumbnail came late, but the last part of that thumbnail is what the epiphany came about. That both sides of the coin is getting screwed. Pretty much here, but we'll talk about that in a little bit here. Let's go ahead and start the show by saying stupid o'clock still happens 1 hour into our show here. If we go into a second hour, really depends on how long our conversation for the main topic is going to run here. That is then followed up by Last Man Standing at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then you get a little bit of a respite until Monday morning. We have Nicholas Talkert and Nevermind the Furthermore. And let's not forget about Thursday. Thursdays right here on this channel. We still got more episodes of Comic Book Spectrum coming up here at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern here. So, getting back to what we were talking about on the topic here, it's going to be very, very interesting. We're going to, hopefully more people will show up here. But before we get into that, it is that time once again for us to get into new comic book pickups for the week here. And yes, we got a stack of books here. I know it's not, you can't see it on the screen as of yet, but it's sitting right here in front of me. The first two books might be up on the chopping block here for being sold here. So, just to give you an idea of the two books that I'm talking about here, we got a Darth Vader number 18 that might be coming to Whatnot as far as the buy it now section here, as well as a Suicide Squad number 15. Those two books might be showing up very, 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 very soon on my Whatnot bin here. Then, with that being stated here, we got books that will be staying in the collection or be used for some other purposes here, such as we got blanks this time around. We got another copy of Batman Catwoman Black Label issue 1 blank. We're going to be using that here hopefully soon here. We got another Wonder Girl number 1, Future State Wonder Woman number 1, another Wonder Woman 750 here. I haven't done a 750 as of yet, so I'm really thinking about what I could put on the Wonder Woman 750 here to make it really, really pop. Then we got some Mighty Morphin Power Rangers here. So I'm up here thinking about doing maybe, if I have the time, maybe do maybe do like a White Ranger, you know, maybe a negative space White Ranger. That might be nice to try to do. And I got not just the one copy here, we got three of the number 7s here. And then, you know, I'm also thinking about maybe a negative space Yellow Ranger here on the number 2 for Power Rangers here. Now, something that I didn't think I showed during the C2E2 stuff here, we got this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle book here that I got during C2E2. So I know I didn't talk too much about that, but this was something that I won at C2E2 here. Is pretty nice. So that book was sitting around, and I just happened to find it. It's like, oh, I never talked about that. It never got truly cataloged into the collection. So now it is. And now we also have Sisterhood of the Steel issue number 2, I believe. Yeah, that's issue number 2. Sisterhood of the Steel issue number 2. Then I got the last issue of Heroes for Hire for volume 2, which is issue number 15. Heroes for Hire volume 2. And then we got as a freebie a Superman 82. That's the chromatic one. I'm not certain how long that's going to stay in the collection here, but we're going to see, because I think I have another copy of it, but I'm not certain here. And then we got a pretty decent copy of Lois Lane 117, was one that I didn't have before. Now, for those Dave Steven fans, you're probably going to like these two that's coming up here. We got Aliens World number 2 and Aliens World number 3 for those Dave Steven fans out there that love his artwork. And then for those who love Lois Lane, there it is. I finally got a copy of issue number 5 of Lois Lane. It's pretty nice and decent here. The only bad thing about it is like it's a lot of tanning on the spine here, but that's okay because it's issue number 5. That's, you know, one of the lowest numbers that I have here. And then I got a nice little run of Earth 2 that came in. So we got Earth 2 0, Earth 2 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15.1. This is the non-lenticular. 15.2 non-lenticular. 16, 17, 18. We're missing 19, so we got 20. Annual 1 and Annual 2. All of that is pretty nice here. And then we got X-Men number 1, Tooth and Claw. Or I should say X-Men Tooth and Claw number 1. That is pretty nice. And then we end up getting a Strange Tales 149. As well as Avengers Unplugged number 5. And this is the first time that Monica Rambeau was actually called, I believe she was actually went by the name of Photon in this one. She actually became known as Photon in this issue. This was the first time they actually recognized her as Photon. Then we got another copy of Hulk Volume 1, issue number 54. And then one of my best acquisitions so far to date here. We got a New Gods number 1. I actually like this here. This is cool, you know, old school Jack Kirby. And it's in pretty decent condition here. This one might go into the grading. Even though it has that little bitty chip, this might go into the get graded pile, which is nice. We got a Timeless 1, which is the gatefold cover for Timeless here, which is pretty nice. And then this is All New Venom 10, the Cloak Alex Ross cover. And again, it is a Venom book. I don't care too much for Venom, but it is the Cloak Alex Ross cover, so that was pretty nice. Then we got another copy of Wonder Woman 779. I have a couple of these already, so no major whoop to do with that one. I forgot which volume of Red Sonja this is, but this is a Red Sonja #1, where they did kind of like a mashup of all the different images of Red Sonja to do, to weave her in through the outline of her throughout the cover. And then we got a Ghost Rider #1, which is pretty nice. I think this is one of the later volumes of Ghost Rider 1. I don't remember which volume off the top of my head. We got Gwen Stacy variant cover for Excalibur #7. Avengers and Moon Girl #1, which is pretty nice. And then we got another copy here. This one definitely got to get pressed. And depending on, well, it does have a little bit of writing on it. So it's not going to get into the grave pocket. I just realized, I just see the indentation. I'm not certain if this was pencil or pen, but after cleaning it up and everything, about the, originally I saw this here. I was like, yeah, if we get it pressed and everything, it'd be a good copy to send in. And I finally saw like the markings and stuff, the indentations where somebody traced the Wonder Woman on here. But this is another 206 here. This is the third appearance of Nubia. Then we also got Marvel Chillers #5 here. This is what #5 would be no, it wouldn't be the third appearance. It would be like the fifth appearance. The fifth appearance of Tigra. No, fourth appearance of Tigra. Because giant size creatures was the first appearance of Tigra. Marvel Chillers 3 was the second. The third would have been issue 4. This is issue 5 here. So that's an extra copy of that here. Then we got Jazz Solitaire, which is from the Double Impact series. We got Gateway #1. Again, I haven't made my decision on what I'm going to do with Gateway #1 as of yet. So that's the reason why it's still in the collection as of right now. And then another great pickup here. And I'm glad that I convinced myself of going ahead and buying it when everybody else was buying up all the other ones. But yes, there it is. Supervillain Team Up #1. Technically, Supervillain Team Up was the very first Doctor Doom series in his own series here. He was always teamed up with Submariner in the Supervillain Team Ups here. But that was technically the first Doctor Doom series. Then we finally got a copy of Lady Mechanica #4. And this is from the original run of Lady Mechanica. And then we got Lady Mechanica #1, La Belle de Sans Mercy, which is pretty nice. And then from Kitchen Sink Comics, we got The Spirit #2 from 1973. Now, the history behind this one is that I didn't realize there was a 1973 series of The Spirit from Kitchen Sink here. It only ran 2 issues, so the only one I'm missing out of the 1973 series is issue #1. So there we go. We got that here. We also got, I believe this is the second print of this one here, and that is The Spirit, the first 93 dailies. So these are like the daily comic strip versions of The Spirit here. And this is the second printing of it here. So I don't know what the first printing looks like, but that is the second print here. Then we got Rogue #3 from volume 2, I believe. And then last but not least, something that makes me so happy and kind of filled with joy because of the simple fact that we're getting closer to having all of this particular run of this comic book title, and that is the Spirit in magazine format here. So we start off with issue number 7. For this is during the time that Warren magazine had it. So we got issue number 7, issue number 8, issue number 9, issue 13, issue 15, and then we get into where Kitchen Sink takes over and got issue number 17, and then we skip a few issues to 23, 24, 25, 26 to 31, 33, the spanking issue of 35, 39, and issue number 40. So with all of those being calculated in, we're going to go into our collector's update, but that is pretty much new comic book pickups for this week here. That is a lot of books that came in. We take consideration that from magazines to actual normal printed books, that's a lot of books here. So in our collector's update here, there's been no change to the Film Force as of yet. We have not got any new Film Force stuff here. Ghost, we haven't really found anything new for the Ghost series. However, there has been changes to our Spirit update here. We're still missing issue number 2 for Harvey Comics. I was able to track some of them down, but I'm not willing to pay the money for that as of yet. As far as the magazines are concerned, we're down to the last 4 to get in the collection, which is issue 16, 18, 19, and 30. And then for the 1973 run for Kitchen Sink, we're only missing issue number 1. And then from the Kitchen Sink run, I believe was 1978. I didn't put down the year, but those are the missing issues that I don't have. From the New Adventures, I'm only missing issue 0. From the Origin years 3 through 10. From the Dynamite series, issues 2, 4 through 12, and then from the Will Eisner, the Corpse Maker, issues 2 through 5 here. No change in Uncanny X-Men, even though I was having people, looking up different stuff for me for volume 5, trying to track down the actual issue 20 and 22. As far as the Wonder Woman update, volume 1 is a pain in the rear, but I do have a lead on issue 128 and 127. And no change in the X-Men update as far as volume 5 and volume 6 is concerned here. So on that note, that brings us to tonight's topic here. And hopefully those who are watching, they'll go ahead and participate in the chat when it comes to this here. We're going to revisit Raw versus Slab again. And before, when I talked about this before, I pretty much said it's like it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter which way that you go. Whatever floats your boat is the best way to go with this here. But I had an epiphany, while I was at storage. Yes, I did go to storage here, and as I was sorting out books and everything, I had an epiphany, and that epiphany was, wait a second. Why does it seem like the secondary market is screwing both sides here? You can't win for losing. And the reason why I say you can't win for losing is more so for this here. So before we really get into the nitty gritty, let's look at it from the perspective of all of those who have been yelling, and I know it's been a lot of you that's been yelling this year. So I want to say shout outs to everybody who is out here yelling messed over so much during this whole new era of secondary market. And the reason why I got to give you guys shout outs because you guys have been holding fast to tradition. You've been holding fast to, the whole aspect of why we have to grade comics and look at conditions and the whole thing about bartering. And really, it's the foundation of that secondary market. But you guys getting kind of like messed over so much because the standard now for when you look at the best bang for your buck for your comic is you have to convert it over to graded or get it slabbed, and whatever grade that slab gets is what is the de facto standard. And it's like, the more I thought about it, it's like, no wonder a lot of people are getting upset, and the reason why they're saying that I would never get a comic book slab. That's like, it's not really. When I originally looked at this topic, I was looking at it as like, points of view and everything, and how people enjoy their comics and how they read it and how they collect. But when I look at it from the eyes of the secondary market is screwing both sides over left and right. And it doesn't make any sense, especially for those who are the raw collectors, because the raw book collectors, they're the ones that really makes up the backbone of that secondary market. Because technically, when I look at the bigger picture, it's like there are going to be a lot more raw books that could be picked up at any given time than slabs, period. But yet, with people who only wanted to collect high grade books and it must be a 9.8 and all this other stuff in this modern speculative age, it screwed raw collectors over, because now your grading capability has to be, on the upper echelon. You have to be able to assess and grade books to a certain degree where people are not going to argue and try to barter with you. A 9.8 candidate has to be a 9.8 candidate. Anybody can say that a book is a 9.8 and it has all these different creases and all this other stuff up in them. And we know, if you've ever followed the grading scale and follow all the different books, whether it be from Overstreet or from CGC or CBCS, which is now defunct, but those guidelines do come into play. And if you primarily just only do raw books, you're going to have people bartering you, because they're going to find every little nook and cranny type thing to say that book is not the grade that you stated is. And it's weird how you guys are getting screwed over and everything to that magnitude. But on the flip side, and this is the weirdness behind the secondary market here, you got people who are doing slabs or graded books and everything, and they seeing a downturn in people buying slabs. And the reason being is because the speculative market has changed. Books that they believed that was going to fetch them thousands of dollars, or at least in the low thousands, are now, those books are now tanking and they're going down to dirt cheap prices. So if you're not getting the higher upper echelon or the overly speculated books, and overly speculated books, I still put ASM 300 as an overly speculated book for the amount of copies that are still out there, but the price that's being asked for, that's an overly speculated book. But unless you got something of that quality or something that is really old and rare that is graded, there's a downturn. And that downturn is people are shifting away from investing in that 9.8 slab or something that was overly highly speculated, or they thought that they were going to have a quick turnaround where people were going to buy a whole bunch of, them and try to flip it as fast as possible. So, the flipping game has turned against those who do slabs. And with the flipping game has turned against people who do slabs, people like myself who are preservationists looking at this, it's like, we tried to warn you. It's like, you really just need to grade the stuff that really need to be graded for you to be able to preserve it. Now, granted, a slab does not truly protect your comic the way that most people think it is. But when we look at preservation, we know for a fact, once it's get graded, at one time it was this grade. They've been encapsulated. As long as you take care of it, that grade really doesn't change unless you leave it out in the sun or mistreat it. From that preservationist point of view, we're not saying it is the best way to keep your comic, because no, you could get a good Mylite, good boards and everything, and that book would have the same type of thing here. But the caveat to it is that it has a professional, and I'm putting it in quotation mark, a professional grade added to it. And nobody's going to question it like somebody would question, if I could say it in this term, a collector owned or seller owned grade to it. But I get it. And those people who still in that camp that it's just, I get it. I feel your pain now. I really do. Because when I came to that epiphany, it's like, you guys are really getting the raw end of it, because you're hoping beyond hope that people come back to the older ways. Because again, with over reliance on these grading companies and over reliance on professional grading, over reliance on being able to do the quick flip, over reliance on speculation, you're not really getting the top dollar for your books here, or the top value for your books. To be quite honest with you here, I was in the middle of modding for a Whatnot show before I started tonight's show here, and I was seeing books that were being sold in like the silver and golden age going for a lot less than what they are actually worth. And mind you, all of these books that are being sold were raw books. However, there was no haggling, no nothing here, because the seller himself is one of those people that says, like, I have to get it out of my collection, because if something did happen to me, the person who he's leaving it to would not know what to do with them. So he's, working his plan and getting those books sold off here. But he's not getting what I consider fair market value on a lot of the stuff that he's selling. And he understands that. It's like, some books are going to go as steal. Some books are, he might get a little bit more, or some books that he might get, break even on. But saying that, is like, the people who do deal with raw books, that's the problem. It's like, a true near mint book is a near mint book, and that's always going to be in the eye of the beholder. But with professional grading and everything, and when we look at actual defects and everything, and you cross over to that professional line, that's where the actual secondary market is screwing both sides. Why is it so much of a demand to have it professionally graded in the secondary market to prove that it's a 9.8? Now, granted, let's play devil's advocate for a second. And the devil advocate point of view here is, well, the grades have to be, agreed upon on both sides. It's like, yes, the grade has to be, agreed upon on both sides, both from the seller's end and the buyer's end. That's pretty standard. However, the buyers don't really question too much about anything that has been professionally graded through like a CGC, a CBCS, a PSA, a EGS, a PGX. Those professional grading companies, they don't get the scrutiny as a person who is an individual collector saying, it's like, I'm going to sell my Spider-Man #1. And when I say Spider-Man #1, I'm talking about the one in the 1990s. I'm going to sell that one. Because he's not a professional grader, most buyers are going to try to talk him down, saying, no, that's not a near mint book. That's not a 9.8. It might be a 7.5. And if it's 7.5, I want it for $5. If not, I give you $2.50 for it. That's where the haggling comes back to the detriment of those who do the raw books. It's not a bad thing, but you shouldn't have to go and get a book professionally graded to actually get the value of that book here. Now you want to have to deal with some really old school people like myself who understands grading, who might understand the aspect of, pressing and doing everything within their possible power to get a book to a higher grade before sending it over to be professionally graded. We could be reasonable. Let's see, we got a comment here. Yeah, but on the other side of the coin, the sellers are like, this book is super high grade. It's an 8.5. So I want $500 for it. And that's part of that, but that's part of the whole thing here. That's the whole thing, part of the whole thing here, Parallax. That is what to be expected up under the old school rules here. Before the secondary market shifted to where professionally graded books automatically gets that bump, raw books used to be, to be quite honest, back when I was in high school, before professionally graded books, were in vogue, what you just said was de facto standard. It's like, oh yes, this is the speculation that we got off of, Wizard magazine, that this Uncanny X-Men 106 is now worth $250. I don't want to. It's like, since you're a good customer, I'm not going to force you to $250. I want $200. That was the de facto standard. But yet you still got raw book sellers and raw book collectors in this day and age, up under this particular secondary market, that is still trying to do that. And people are just going to look at them strangers like, it's not graded. Why am I? Well, it's like, I'm not going to pay slab prices on a raw book. That's part of the problem. That's the reason why those who deal with raw books are getting screwed to a certain degree. Because if it's truly a 9.8, it doesn't matter whether it's professionally graded or not. The book is worth this exact same thing here. Yeah, back with Laney and Frederick Douglass hanging. Yeah. It had mint juleps. Exactly. But that's the epiphany that I had about the secondary market, especially in this secondary market where speculation is at an all-time high. The reliance on professional grading is at an all-time high. People are not as trusting as they should when it comes to sellers. And that's like I said, and I'm not saying that it's 100% in favor of those who are in the slab market, because the people who are in team slab are getting screwed over more so than anything. Because I went out, if you go out and buy like a Externals #1 from like the 1970s, and I bought that still at $250, and you come right back around, now that book at a 9.8, it's like $50. You go and womp womp. That's the bubble that people were talking about when it comes to speculation, and you got bit by that speculation. You know, it is what it is. And she's saying, yes, you and I know that 9.8 slab is like double the price from, some odd reason. And that's the thing. It's like both sides are is getting screwed. That double the price really comes based upon the speculation within this newer secondary market. It's not based upon the amount of copies that's truly available, or whether or not the series have staying power. Something gets optioned. Now, here's a bump up in price until we find out that they're not going to do anything for it, and the popularity dies down, and then next thing you know, it comes crashing back down to where it's supposed to be in the very first place. That's the secondary market that we're living in right now, as opposed to, like you said, back in the day where Laney and Frederick Douglass were drinking mint juleps. Because back then it was like, oh, it's a brand new series. There's a little bit of bump, because of its popularity. Okay, instead of paying, instead of paying like 75 cents for it, you might have to pay $5 or $8 because of the popularity of it. It's not like today, like with Dork, where it's like the $4.99 price tag jumped up to like a $60 coming in the door on New Comic Book Day just for that issue number 1, which is really ridiculous in this new secondary market. Just because it had a little bit of buzz does not force comic book shops to jack up the price that much. And to be quite honest, I don't blame comic book shops. I just blame how the secondary market does these types of things here. Me says hearts for hearts for Uncle Joe. Click the button. Yep. And that's the messed up thing, because it's like, as many times people argue about Raw versus Slab, I would never buy Slab books. Raw books it's like, it's just too much, worry about Raw books and blah blah blah. It's like, it should be an either or. If you should look at it as, is this worthwhile to preserve? If it is, then if you want to maintain it raw, invest with the Mylights, invest with the top, the very best board, and keep pushing. Or you could go to the encapsulation, get it professionally graded. That way, beyond a shadow of doubt that the condition of that book is that way when that professional grader got it and sent it back to you. Now, whether or not things happen in between then, so be it. But if you look at it from the monetary aspect of it, for those who are trying to do the investment side, those who are trying to do the quick flip to make money off of this, I'm sorry, you're getting screwed either way. That's just the way that this secondary market is fucking people over. Excuse my language, but you are getting messed over. And it's sad. It is very sad. Because now you're up here, it's like, well, if I got my book slab and I got that book slab fast enough, now I'm racing, the time for whatever bell curve happens. And if the bubble bursts before I'm able to sell it, I'm not going to make any money off of that slab, period. That ship has sailed. And I have to wait for, hopefully, the next big speculative moment to bring the prices back up for that slab to be sold. And as I stated before with the Raw, I have to weigh out all the different haggling, critiques about the grade of the books and all this other stuff, the haggling over the price because the simple fact that it was never professionally graded, and people were going to try to figure out ways to say, it's like, oh, there's a little bitty spine tick right there. That's not a 9. That's not a 9.8. That brings it down to like a 9. So I'm not going to pay that 9.8 price for it. It's just one of those types of things here. It's like my view is we're really going to drop $1,000 on a Fantastic Four 5 Raw, where it could be trimmed, color touch, because I'm not walking around with, yeah. I mean, that stuff happens. People be surprised of how many books got touched up and everything to that magnitude. Just like what I said, if you saw what I said with new comic book pickups here. Like with my brand new guys #1. That's a nice little chip that's there. It's in the bag. I see it where it's at. It's hanging on by a thread, but that's a nice little chip that's there. To me, that's still worth grading as opposed to this nice little Wonder Woman 29, which I up here is like, oh yeah, if I could get that pressed and even out, I was thinking, oh, that's good, but I just saw the indentation where, and I don't think the camera is going to pick up on it very well here. Oh, yeah, it did. It did. I think it did. Hold on, let me try to get the glare out of it. But there's like pencil and pen marks where somebody wrote on the title and everything here, and that indentation is not going to come out here. It's not picking up very well there, but those are the types of things that you got to take into consideration here. Now, I could not sell this. I cannot honestly sell this as really a truly, truly, truly high grade book. If it's a truly high, it's like at best it might be an 8 because of that. This here still might be a 9, even though with that type of chip there. I mean, it just could be what it is. And then Parallax is saying, yeah, if it's a CGC 6, I know that it's not enhanced. Yep. Ergo books that you need, to get graded. Ooh, Orion. She's talking about the, yeah. Well, that's the thing. You could tell something was on it. Something was written on top of it. It is not completely gone. So even if he rolled the indentation out from either the pencil or the pen, you still got the remnants of the marking. I'm not certain if the absorbing would get the rest of the markings and stuff out of it, but it's something that could be tried. But if I try to sell this book as is, I know I can't get top dollar for it, because the first thing that people going to say is like, oh, we got markings and stuff here. And then after they see that, they're going to say, well, the book looks a little bit more dirty. It needs to be pressed. You got, it's a little bit rolled there, this, down, the other. But even after it gets pressed, rolled, and all this other stuff, it's a pretty decent book. But the question still remains, are people willing to do what is needed to be done for the raw books to match up to what the current secondary market wants? And that's the problem. And just the problem, it's like I just don't understand why the secondary market is the way that it is at this point. And I guess maybe because we got, maybe because the newer people that's coming in just that naive. Or is it because, newer people coming in as sellers are getting that desperate and that greedy? Bean says she would pay Fetty 55, free 50, free 50 at a grilled cheese. But again, that's kind of like one of those things dealing with like the secondary market. It's just the secondary market is just bonkers. Luckily, these books were bought on auction and not, a straight comic book deal. I don't know. That's a good offer. But but saying all that to say, it's just weird that as many times people are up here, saying one versus the other, we never truly looked at the secondary market and says like we're getting screwed either way in this climate. In this current climate, we're getting screwed either way. So it really doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter. And it really shouldn't matter. To be quite honest, if you hold everything level across the board, a 9.8 is a 9.8, a 9.6 is a 9.6, a 9.4 is a 9.4. If all of that was supposed to stay level, then it doesn't matter how the book is presented to you, whether it's encapsulated or whether it's in a mylite or just a regular bag and board. It is what it is. But it's not that way. Because people look at it as like, well, I need to be compensated for sending it over to a professional grader. Okay. That's justifiable, to pay, to have whoever buys it from you to pay a little bit extra for it. But it does like you said, Parallax, it doesn't make any sense for a doubling or tripling of the price because of the simple fact that you send it to a grading company. That part does not make any sense. Also, what doesn't make any sense here is the FOMO that gets played because of the over reliance of speculation, especially in this modern day speculation, because they might make a movie out of this. It might become a television show. Season two of the namesake on television side is coming out soon. Therefore, all these other books, and it's like, guys, don't you realize that these books are not one-to-one to the TV series? I mean, perfect example, Walking Dead. Walking Dead is now, I think they're almost finished with the deluxe series where now they're, some of the issues are now in full color and all this other stuff, and you're getting extra content. There's no TV, there's no extra television series coming out for Walking Dead, and it's doing perfectly fine. But the original stuff, is slowly getting that uptick because it got to a deluxe edition. And people still love the stories here. It doesn't make sense for Invincible to be the way that it is based upon the animated series. The prices of Invincible books are through the roof because people are expecting those who like the animation to come over to comics. That's not how it works. The audience who loves the animation and that has only seen the animation is going to like what they see on the animation. That does not mean that they're going to cross mediums to read the source material. And let's just say even 10% of the audience who watch the animated series cross over. It does not cause the jump that Invincible books have now. Now, granted, some of those books are short print runs. I get it. But we still shouldn't have later issues in the hundreds of dollars because of it. Even with it being short print runs. I just believe that people are just that impatient and just in that much of a FOMO because they want to get their collections completed as fast as possible just to be able to say, oh, I have a full run of X, Y, and Z. And then taking in consideration that they have done omnibuses of Invincible, it makes me even, think a little bit more clearly and logically. It's like, well, if the omnibuses are out and they are of such where it's plentiful enough, technically there shouldn't be as great as an uptick for the issues here. But like I said, I can't really speak on everybody's collecting habits. I just see it as the market is screwing either side. And she said, yep, you can get all 144 issues in 3 tomes. Yep. Cost you a lot less money. Cost you a lot less money, but at the same time, you got people who just like, they want each and every issue of it here. It's like, yeah, you could get all 3 of them for like $150 average. So for the cost of, let's say, for issue like 131, which I know is kind of like a short run, for the cost of one of those books, or actually 131 and 132, that might actually run you close to like $250 because I know that those books are short run. Those 2 books combined outweighed the fact that you could get all 3 of them for $150. But yet again, I still hear you guys saying feels like you are taking it kind of raw at this point because I get collector's mentality. You want to get it all in, you want to get it all in single issue format. I get it. But the secondary market is screwing everybody over. It's not giving people the fair shake that it's supposed to. Now, granted, I get comic book stores need to make their money. I understand that, times are tough and people want to sell their books and everything to have money to do whatever that they need to survive here. I get it. I just feel the way that I feel here. It's like, no matter if you're team Slab or team Raw, that secondary market is screwing us all over, period. Basically a buck an issue, then slower than the price of cover E. Yeah, it just, I mean, what more can I say? I mean, like I said, we were revisiting this, and like I said before, I'm not telling people how to collect or how to look at these things here, but I'm just letting you know about the epiphany that I had. It's like, why is the secondary market screwing everybody? That just didn't make, normally when I think about secondary market favors a particular group. So it's either going to favor those who want to deal in slabs or it's going to favor those who want to deal in raw. The secondary market is doing neither. If anything, I could say that this secondary market is favoring pretty much the seller. Who's Tiffany? No, epiphany. An epiphany is like this clarifying thought, or this or this clarifying rational if I could say, conclusion that you came to. That's just like it's clear as day. You can see it perfectly for what it is. That's what an epiphany is. So it's not an actual person. It is kind of like a state. It's kind of like a state of mind where everything becomes clear and you have clear understanding of what is actually happening. So hopefully you understand that mean that it's like, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's no way anybody can convince you otherwise that this is the way that it is. And that's what reason why we're revisiting this topic here, because for the longest I'm up here, it's like, why are people fighting over this type of thing? It's like, shouldn't it just be like, do whatever feels best for you? And then I sat back and I'm up here in my storage and I'm just thinking, and I thought about, I was like, well, I do have this and I want to get that, might get that slab and this, that, and the other. And then I started thinking about, I was like, well, I got a couple of books that I might want to sell, and then pop, it hit. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's raw or slab. The secondary market is screwing everybody over. It's just like I just it's just out of the blue. It's like people just getting screwed, and it's like you can see it on many different platforms. It doesn't matter if you're on eBay, if you sell through claim sales on YouTube, or sell through claim sales on uh, on Facebook. Even if you're on platforms like whatnot, doesn't matter. Slab or raw, you're going to have people coming at you, contesting if you sell raw books, contesting the grades and everything, and trying to manipulate everything down for what the book is really worth. And then if you do have the slab, pretty much if you're not on that bubble, if you're not still on that the curve going up where the value is still going up and up and up, they're not going to pay that upper echelon price that you're hoping for. I mean, your time to get like that 9.8 dork #1 for getting like $500, $600, $700, that time about to get very, very short, very, very quick, and then next thing you know, it's going to crash back down and level out. That's one of the reasons why I'm kind of happy that at least Ultimate Fallout 4 leveled out, because everybody's up here. It's like, oh, we got to get the Ultimate Fallout 4. It's every last version of it, whether it be the first printing, the second printing, the facsimile. Everybody was up here. It's like, oh, we got to get this out here because everybody's chomping out the bit for Miles Morales. And I was like, this got to level out soon. It has to. And it did. It did. And a lot of times I don't, I have to say this. I don't blame investors. I really don't. Because investors knew, and then the ones that were really trying to treat it as stocks and sell it like it was stock and everything, and understand that these prices can eventually crash and whatnot, they were smart about it. So I can't even blame them. They were truly smart about it. But the thing that I believe they didn't even realize is that the secondary market is screwing everybody. The sustainability is not there. It's too volatile. And like I said before, it was like, when it comes to speculation, follow what was in the Marvel Comics Guide to Collecting Comics, where it talked about speculation. And speculation is really not whether or not a IP gets a television series, or if it gets a movie, or it gets a mention in some type of social media, or it gets some type of push from some type of politician or anything like that. True speculation comes from the aspect of whether or not that title has enough legs to survive and maintain its popularity. Now, again, not too many people read and enjoy the comic medium as a whole here. If anything, in this day and age, comic books are treated as source material. So when it gets treated as source material, when it gets treated as a collector's item, and that's another aspect of where the secondary market is screwing people over. I will get to that. I'll get to that in another second here, about why raw books get screwed over when it is treated as a collector's item. But going back to the thought that I had here is that they never really look at speculation. That is, in the Marvel Comics Guide here, TV, movies are different medium. So that's the reason why they never included that in the in what you should speculate on a title. There's no guarantee that a TV watcher would ever come to a physical thing that they have to read in order for the source material. Same thing with a moviegoer. A moviegoer wants to go and watch a movie and escape for 2.5 hours. Who's to say that they want to come over here to a comic book store, pick up a comic book, and have like 15 minutes worth of reading or 20 minutes worth of reading? There's no guarantee for that. Same thing for novels. And it's like that 2-hour moviegoer is not going to stop and take the time to read like a 400-page novel of the source material where it came from. There's no guarantee for that. So why are we speculating on it? People look at the speculation from TVs and movie as a popularity boost, but it's not really going to be a popularity boost per se for those who partake in the medium itself. It's a popularity boost as far as brand recognition, and it plays into the whole thing about the collectability, but it does not guarantee that that moviegoer, that television watcher, that that anime or animation watcher will cross back over to the comic and come and read the comic. There's no guarantee for it. Which brings me back to what I was saying about how raw books were getting screwed over from the designation of comics now being treated as collectibles. This thing right here is now considered a collectible. It's no longer considered an episodic story. When they took away episodic story from this medium, now people are just going to look at it as far as, oh, this is third appearance of Nubia. We don't care about the story that's contained up in here. We just want it because it's the third appearance of Nubia. Most people would buy it because it's first issue. Or if they're a Jack Kirby fan, it's a well-known Jack Kirby first issue. The collectability of it. Nobody is coming back and saying this is the first part of an ongoing story that lasts 15 issues. They took the episodic story away from the comic book. They have made it a collectible, as if it was a toy or a plate or a piece of clothing. Nobody is seeing story. I should clarify. Nobody is seeing this as illustrated story anymore. They're seeing it as first issue, first appearance of Orion, Jack Kirby classic to collect it. Nobody is seeing story of New Gods where it began. That's a major problem. Another reason why, a lot of the stuff dealing with raw books comes into play. Now, mind you, this is a decent copy of it. I got it because, I'm slowly collecting the New Guys, and I could come back, read it real quick and be like, it's nice. I could go ahead and preserve it, do what I need to do with it, and keep it nice and pristine. Now, eventually, if it did get to the point where times were rough, it's like, yeah, I might actually think about getting it graded, preserve it, and then whatever grade it has, it is what it is. So there would be no question. But the way the secondary market is now, there's no guarantee that I would get top dollar for this book, because unless I get it into a hands of a person who collects first issues, a person who collects Jack Kirby, or a person who's collecting Orion, or a person who is just, a New Gods collector, I have to look at it from who's collecting this book, as opposed to, hey, this is a good copy of a episodic illustrated story that a lot of people should read. You took the fact that this thing is part of a story. And, one of the things that I used to always get upset about collective volumes, but I understand why people want collective volumes now, because it's too dang on hard to get each part of these episodic stories. When they did collected volumes and graphic novels and stuff like that, they had simplified things to make it easier for people to come into this medium of comics for the story aspect of it. However, the IP holders now on the corporate side have lost sight of that. These books are not being marketed that way. These things here are being marketed the same way that they market the brand new toy, the brand new lunchbox, the brand new makeup, the brand, anything that's brand new that they're treating it as a product, not as a story. They're treating it as something like you consume on a regular basis, just like how you consume television watching hours, how you consume, regular news and everything to that man, dude. They treating it like that. This in this form is no longer considered entertainment. It is considered something to consume. It's just really bad, and the secondary market reflects that now. So when you're up here, get into that debate as far as which is better, slab or raw. Right now, I have to say neither, because the secondary market is screwing both sides. It just really is that way. Now, hopefully, what I just discussed, it's making a good impression here. It's making you think, because that's all I want. All I want is not to tell you is like, oh, stop the discussions and stop the arguments. Like, no, let's still have these discussions and arguments about which one you like better and stuff like that. That's always good. But what I want people to really truly think about is not to say that it's an either or, when it's both that is getting screwed in the secondary market. It would have been different if the secondary market was favoring one or the other. I get it. But this secondary market is screwing both sides to no end. And that's only because of the way that it's being marketed, how comics are being marketed now. It's not being marketed for the stories anymore. It's not being marketed for the artwork that it contains inside of it. It's not being marketed as a thing of entertainment. It's being marketed as a collector's item and something to be consumed, like it was a Beanie Baby or a McDonald's hamburger or that Tupperware set or Ginsu knives. It's something to consume, to say that it's something that I have for like a status symbol. It's not the same anymore. The secondary market is not the same. And the secondary market is treating both sides. It's screwing both sides over. And that's pretty much the end of tonight's topic here, unless you guys got something else to say here. And I'm wondering, like, Beanie, if you're still out there, did my definition of epiphany help you understand what epiphany is? Say yes, no, maybe, I don't know. That would be perfectly fine. But that's pretty much what I had on my mind here. That's what really is going on here. The reason why I chose tonight's topic for what it was, because okay, so you understand that. That's good. That's a good sign here. But that's the reason I brought this topic up here, because it bothered me. It bothered me to the point where it's like that aha moment was like, damn, this is really, really bad. It's not going to get even better. The secondary market is going to constantly do this here, because again, the creators and the maintainers of these IPs is not going to try to change it, because they benefit from it. A lot of sellers are not going to change it, especially if they're on the upper echelon of it and they're making their money. They're not going to try to change the secondary market to fix some of the injustices here. And then those who can't profit off of it, they're going to still be the woe is me. Woe is me. It's like this, comic book's about to get ready to collapse, and technically it's not. It's not. It's not the physical product. It's the secondary market that causes people to buy and sell in their habits here. Now, until we get rid of a lot of the FOMO aspect of things here, until we get a lot of the speculation based upon TV series, movies, music, other social media outlets, and everything out of the books, out. And when I say out of the books, I'm talking about out of the way, and we get back to speculating based upon whether or not the series is good, the story is being reached here. People are liking the story. The artwork is great. People want to follow the artist. People want to follow the writer again. Until we get back to that type of speculation, a lot of the stuff that's happening now is going to screw both sides, whether you're on Team Slab or Team Raw. And also shout outs to Milo the Cat. Thank you for doing that lip sync video with Dr. Teeth here, using the ODB song, I Like It Raw. So that's the reason why I did what I did here, because like I said, I understand those people who are on Team Raw. I get where you're coming from. I can keep the book as pristine as possible. I can always come back, open up my bag and board, read the story, put it right back in, keep it nice and clean, this, that, and the other, and everything is great. I understand your argument. And I'm more in your camp now because of the simple fact of what's going on with the secondary market. I see your struggle. Now, I know for a fact, as a preservationist, I was up here harping about grading and why you need to grade as far as preservation is concerned here. And I was up here, kind of, and you could blame me for this, kind of justifying why you should grade. But also at the same time, I also was not one of the ones that up here looking at the investment side. I was up here looking at long term as opposed to short term. So a lot of the stuff that the investors were doing, and it's like I understood their downfalls and the shortcomings of how the secondary market is affecting them. I understood that and knew, coming in the door, they're going to have to deal with that because the secondary market is going to screw them over. But it took today to make me realize how much worse you guys have it as people who keep things raw. So on that note, not certain if there's any more questions here. We got people up in the chat. If you got comments, questions, and everything, let's go ahead and hear it now, before we wrap everything up. Because if there's no other comments or anything to that magnitude, what I'm probably going to end up doing here is probably go back out here to help my buddy out on Whatnot to finish up modding his show for the tail end of it, and then finish up watching Daredevil Born Again. I know I got to be up early tomorrow and everything. Got some business to take care of on tomorrow morning. So guess it looks like there's no more comments. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode here. If you're watching it on a replay and you got questions, you got comments, go ahead and leave them. I will read them. I will address them as need be. So, and don't forget to like and to subscribe here if you like the content, because we will do more of it here. The one thing that I didn't do was this here. I had this ready for tonight here. So I'm going to stay on for a little bit longer here. And this is the poll question for today here, because I got more sketch covers here. And that was the thing that I wanted to do as a whole here. So the poll question for today would be, What should be the next sketch cover that I do? Should I do another Lisa Masters from Amazonia? Should I do another wrestler from Primetime Saturday Night? Should I do another She-Hulk cover on a She-Hulk blank, or someone on a Wonder Woman blank? So those are your 4 choices here, and you could input your vote in one way or the other by doing 1, 2, or 3, or 4. And it looks like we got some votes going on for number 4 as of right now. So we're going to do that here. Yeah, we got a couple of votes for number 4 as of right now. So we're going to give it a couple more moments here. And hopefully you guys like a lot of the stuff that's going on here with a lot of the interactivity with the voting, and the interactivity as far as having input of the next types of things that could be done here, such as sketch covers, questions that could be asked, and stuff to that magnitude here. I won't ask for other stuff like, which team that you're on, Team Raw or Team Slab. Doesn't matter. Both sides are getting messed over. I just want people to realize that it's like we're both getting messed over. So it is what it is here. So we're going to run it a little bit longer here. And as we close up here, I just want to say, well, to be quite honest, when I start back to drawing Amazonia, I'm pretty much going to be feeling more like this. That's the euphoric feeling that I get when I'm actually starting back to drawing on Bristol boards and everything. It just feels just that great. But for right now, I'm going to give those that's on the East Coast most of your Saturday back. You guys are going to have a little bit more than like 40 minutes left for your Saturdays, and that way you won't be in the future like the rest of us here. Everybody else, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I'm about to be out here. Thanks for those who are voting as of right now. Thanks for letting me know that some of you guys want to see more Wonder Woman stuff coming from me here. That's great. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week as of yet here, but like I said, that moment of clarity hit, and I just felt that was the perfect topic for tonight here, because that way I was able to get that off my chest and everything here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you can here, and tell others about this channel and this show, because like I said, we're fully interactive here. I'm one of the few creators out here, even in this day and age, that will sit here and listen to people. I got things to create, I got books to create and everything. However, as a creator, as a writer, as a artist, especially to those who buy my work, I am beholden to you, the fan, the customer, to say, Joe, why are you doing that? That doesn't make any sense here. Matter of fact, true story, happened this week. One of the fans of the show, I will leave his name out of it because he does watch the show and everything. I won't mention him by name. He came to me on Instagram and said, "Hey, how in the world did SummerSlam beat Diva Gold in primetime Saturday Night issue number 2 the way that she did?" And I was like, you know what? You deserve a good answer for that. And that answer was, you didn't read issue number 3 of the sister book, AWF. In SummerSlam's tryout, who did she face? It was Diva Gold. Who won? Slamazon. That's how she became a part of the Federation. She beat Diva Gold. After that match, Juggernaut took Slamazon up under her wing and started to train her. So it wasn't like she was, brand new out of the box, don't know anything about those on the roster and everything. No, they had a history. Going into that match that happened in primetime Saturday Night issue number 2. So that's the reason why Slamazon was able to beat Diva Gold. Now, there's about to be a rematch for the championship between Slamazon and Diva Gold. So I'll let you guys place your bets on who's going to win. I already know who's going to win. I'm not going to tell you. Not yet. Not until it's ready. So on that note, live life, grow, and be well. And I see you guys next week right here on another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. Have a good rest of your Saturday, and we are out. Bye.